Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Josh Moore. I'm the marketing manager at Net-Ctrl, and I'm joined by Zach Maudley, who is one of the account executive team at Verkada. So he supports schools and organisations in and around London. Just a bit of background. So Net-Ctrl have been a partner of Verkada now for 3 years. We've currently been awarded their top partner status, and that is largely through our work in education sector. So that is also obtained not only through our revenue work, but technical competence in design, config, and post-sale support. So if you do have projects or questions off the back of the session today, I'll put my email in the chat, and feel free to raise any questions after this session. What Zach's going to be doing today is going to be introducing or reintroducing Verkada to you. I mean, Verkada is one of those products that just changes every time I see it. You know, the investment in their R&D and their portfolio is like something I've never seen before. I mean, just in a couple of weeks ago, they released like 4 or 5 new products, loads of new feature enhancements. So even if you've seen Verkada even 6 months ago, 3 months ago, perhaps, you're probably going to see some new features and functionality today. He's then going to move on from there. So he's going to go into some background of the company, give you a bit of portfolio and how that relates to schools and colleges. And then he's going to provide a demo of the solution. Everything's going to be recorded. So I hope to get a recording out in your inboxes tomorrow that can be shared, you know, with other people in your teams. If you do have any questions, there is the Q&A box as well at the top. I'll try and answer everything during the session that I'm able to. Anything I'm not able to, I'll raise with Zach at the end. You know, with that, I'll pass over to Zach and let you start the demo.
Thanks, Josh. As Josh said, I'm Zach, one of the account executives on the London team at Verkada. Work closely with Josh and the guys at Net-Ctrl, especially in the education area as well. So in terms of how we'll run, Josh has just explained it brilliantly. I'll run through a couple of slides. Won't be death by PowerPoint. I'll keep it pretty brief on that, and then we'll go into the more interactive demo environment. So just to paint the picture of where Verkada is at today, so 30,000 plus customers, and a large part of those are within education, and then a couple other stats for you there. I won't go through all of them, but growing team. Why that's important is we offer 24/7 support as well. So as our customer base grows, so does our engineering team, and then they're always on hand for support, which I will talk about in a little bit more detail. Where Verkada is very different to traditional security solutions is this platform and single pane of glass experience. And so you've actually got all of your building security managed under one platform. So from the CCTV is the obvious one, which we tend to be known for predominantly, but we're actually also growing in education, especially with air quality sensors as well, especially around things such as vaping. And then there's access control, Intercom, and then I'll also touch upon the guest and the mailroom as well. So all of these products, 10-year warranty on the hardware, and then 24/7 support. So it removes a lot of that ongoing maintenance that's needed for traditional systems and your security as a whole. There's also automatic updates. So just like your phone, when there's the latest update, whether it's Android, iOS, whatever it might be, then you're actually, getting security upgrades for free, new feature upgrades for free. So what you see now will be very different to what you'd have seen from Verkada 2 years ago, and any customer that had Verkada 2 years ago will also get the updates that they're seeing now pushed out for free. In terms of where Verkada is very different, so traditionally CCTV access control and alarms have followed a similar sort of pattern. It's a lot of on-premise solutions, very much tons of equipment, can be pretty bulky, a lot of hardware, difficult to maintain, and usually quite expensive to maintain as well. Where Verkada is different from that is it actually removes the need for a lot of this hardware, mainly being this MVR, DVR, whatever it is you use to record the footage. This is very much a single point of failure. If anything went wrong with this piece of the architecture, you'd have all the footage wiped out. Verkada is completely different from that, where you've got this hybrid cloud architecture. And so when I say hybrid cloud, it's not 100% cloud, it's not 100% on-prem, it's that sweet in-between spot. So you've got the footage data recording on the camera itself, so it's on board, and then you've also got it backed up to the cloud as well. So 30 days is pretty standard, and then some education customers will tend to opt for a little bit longer as well. This allows to be able to remotely view the footage on as many devices as you wanted, as many users as well. Just makes it really easy to manage the system. In terms of a couple of customers, these are a couple of our corporate and education customers mixed into one. We can send over a list. There's also a ton of different customer stories on our website as well. With all things, I think it's really helpful to be able to actually trial a system. And so where a lot of education customers typically see the real value in Verkada and understand whether it's going to be the right fit for them is testing it in their live environment. So I won't spend much time talking about the free trial, but if you had interest in this, then feel free to reach out to myself or Josh. I think he's put his email in the chat in order to arrange how to set that up. And I will now jump into the demo. So in terms of Verkada, so when logging into the Verkada platform, it's really easy, just doing it through Google Chrome right now. We also integrate with single sign-on providers for that extra layer of security, as well as multi-factor authentication as well. So as you can probably see already, tons of these cameras. So these ones are actually based over in the US in our head office. So I won't spend too much time there. I will jump over to our London office. So for schools, for trusts where you've got several different buildings or locations, it's really helpful to be able to manage that from one place. And you can see this drop down on the left allows you to easily flick between those different areas. So when I click on to all the different products, click onto cameras, and then I jump onto the London site, for example, which is where I'm sat today. So I click onto this specific camera. We haven't got too many cameras at our London office, and I can find footage in a couple of different ways. So the key things that I really want to focus on is finding footage, saving the footage, and then sharing the footage as well. So in terms of finding the footage, firstly, you've got any motion event is automatically picked up. So the cameras are recording 24/7, but anytime a person has been detected, a person walks across the camera, then this will populate as an event below. It will also show what direction they're traveling in, etc., etc. Typically, we see a lot of customers with traditional systems are looking for footage through certain timestamps that they're given. And so when you're given a certain time, say maybe it's over lunchtime, there's an incident broke out, it's a fight, it's whatever it might be, then you can actually flick through hours of footage in a matter of seconds by breaking it down into hour-long clips. So you've probably noticed at the bottom, there's blue areas and then darker gray areas. This is actually showing where motion is detected and how many people are in that clip, and then times when there is no motion detected as well. So here you've got 2 people. If I click into this, it then takes me into that clip and I can see what's going on in that piece of footage. So let's just say these 2, for whatever reason, have had an issue by the door and we need to then look into it. We can click onto these people, which will then search any time that person has been seen across the cameras. Or additionally, I can add other cameras as well to be able to see different views. I can also do that with the Intercom as well. So everything natively integrates and will sync up together at the same time. In terms of other ways to find footage, so when you are looking for a certain pupil, student, or even if you're looking for someone who shouldn't be on site, but they're hanging around outside the school gate, whatever it might be, there's a couple of different ways you can search. And so firstly is through the attribute description. So if I know that someone was hanging around the school gate, they're wearing a red hoodie or whatever color it is, and any description I've got of them, a couple of the receptionist staff, maybe a couple of the safeguarding team have been out, they've seen the guy and reported what he looked like, then I can search via those characteristics here. I can also then search across all cameras, so it's not just this camera. Let's say this was pointing at the front school gate. I can actually search across all the cameras around the entire site as well. And it will also search across different sites as well. So if you're a school or college or even a trust where you've got 4 or 5 different locations and you're worried that this individual might be lingering at the school gate on Monday at school number 1, and then they're going and lingering at school number 3 on Wednesday, then you can actually search across all the different sites. In terms of faces, so you can do a really similar approach with facial search. So you can, if you've then found that individual, so let's use Kieran, he's one of our engineers, I'll pick on him for the purpose of this, then you can actually mark them as a person of interest. What that basically does is create a profile for that person so that anytime their face is seen across any of the cameras on any of the sites, a certain person will get notified. So you can set it up in the settings for IT, safeguarding, head teacher, facility security, receptionist, whoever it is, to get notified via text, email, whatever you wanted to do with that. So really customizable on that side of things. On top of that, something that we recently released is the AI search. And so what we can actually do is if I type in any sort of description here, I can search across all the cameras in a similar way. So this is one that I'd searched earlier. So if I just click person wearing a North Face coat, then this will pull up anytime that description fits the footage across all my cameras. So here you'll see there's a North Face bag there, but in general, we've got the most relevant searches for any time someone has been wearing a North Face coat. So if you've got an incident that fits the description, brilliant. You've then searched for that event in, I think that took me about 10 seconds, rather than 20 minutes, 30 minutes, or even hours in some cases. Once you've saved the footage, so if I just scroll back onto the London office camera, then I can I'll use this clip here just with the delivery guy as an example. I can save the clip, add it to the notes. So whatever it might be, maybe it was bullying, a fight broke out, it's as simple as someone stealing someone's bag, whatever it might be, then you can actually blur the faces if you wanted to for student privacy, add any notes there, and then you can save this clip. Now, once you've saved that clip, it will then go over to the archive section. And this is basically just another word for saved clips. So you've got all the saved clips, all live in one place, got a timestamp in the top left corner so that if the police, parents, safeguarding, whoever needed to see this footage is able to, then you've got that to prove that on there. And then you've also got the ability to then share this really easily. So let's say you need to share this with the safeguarding team and you're in IT or facilities, or share it with the head teacher. You can actually choose how long that you want to give this person access to. So managing access is really easy with Verkada, where you can share live views. You can also share archived and saved clips as well. In terms of the cameras, that's a high level of where most of our education customers are using the cameras. I can't see the question box. I guess we'll save questions for the end. But if you do have any as we're going along, please do just jot them in, and then I'll come back to them. I can always show other features again as well. In terms of access control with Verkada, so you've probably noticed a similar theme where the flow is pretty similar. Verkada really wants to make it as easy as possible to be able to use the system. A lot of systems out there are pretty difficult to use. It requires pretty technical expertise, which is great for a lot of the guys in IT. But when it comes to those who just need to view the footage quickly and want something on their phone or on their laptop that's easy to use, it's not so helpful. So similar to the cameras, we've got all the different doors here across the different locations. Now, if I just click onto this top one, for example, the first thing you're going to notice is that the cameras are automatically integrated with the doors. So In terms of what Verkada supplies on the access control front is the door controller and then the door readers as well. So there's a couple different ways that you can unlock doors with Verkada. One of those is a remote unlock, so the web unlock. So you can actually click here and it will remotely unlock a door. Now, other ways that education customers will use Verkada for access control is through mobile credentials. So sitting in the phone wallet, and then obviously your more traditional ways through keycard as well. And there's also Bluetooth unlock as well. In terms of access control, so similar flow to the cameras when you're searching for certain events or incidents. And so if I pick over the past 30 days, I want to see when a certain student has interacted with a door, or whether it's a certain event. So if it was door held open, tailgating, whatever it might be, maybe one student's coming in and they're letting 10 other students behind them. So you actually don't know how many people are coming onto the site or through that door. You can search through this and it will then narrow down those events below. As you can see here, so tailgating says it was detected here. If we click onto this, we can see this chap at the front, I believe, is going to scan and open the door, and then he's going to let the guy behind in as well. So you can see he's obviously held the door open for a little bit of time, and then that has flagged as tailgating. So it also uses the cameras. So here we've got a camera, actually an intercom outside the door on this side, and then we've got one of the indoor dome cameras on the other side of the door. Really similar to the cameras, so you can save this clip, you can integrate that with the cameras really easily as well. In terms of different ways to manage access control, so typically it's very much a manual process when uploading, onboarding, offboarding users, whereas Verkada makes it really simple to streamline that process. So in terms of importing and uploading users, so we've got a full SCIM integration, so any sort of Active Directory we can integrate with so that you can automatically onboard students when they're joining and when they're leaving. One of the customers I've worked with, it was every time they would be setting up access control for their New Year 7 students, it would be a really difficult task that takes a long amount of time. And then at the end of the year, they'd have to do the same for all the Year 11s that would leave, or the Year 13s if it's sixth form or college. So joiners and leavers are made really easy to manage through Verkada. You can manage everyone's access as a user here, so you can see how they can unlock. And then to take it one step further, you can actually group users as well. So if I can see here, so IT, so there's 22 IT members at Verkada. They can actually access these certain doors through certain hours, certain times, whereas all employees can access different doors. So obviously you don't want all employees, or in this case, all students, to have access to every single door, or even all staff to have access to every single door. So maybe things like the comms room, server room, certain staff rooms have got certain permissions, certain cleaning cupboards have got certain permissions for cleaning staff as well. And this is really easy to set up. In terms of schedules, so you can pick when each door is access controlled, from what hours, so making certain exceptions for cleaners, janitors, whatever it might be, or kitchen staff as well. The reports are really helpful because you can actually get insight into what's going on in each door. And so anytime the badge is scanned, this will populate. If I was to click here, it takes you straight onto that camera view, which we've just been through as well. But then actually taking it one step further and on the reporting side with the roll call. And so if I click on here, it will show all the different people that have been included in this roll call. I can end the report at any time and it will show the last seen time. And typically I don't have the permission to see this right now, but it would show the last seen location, what building they're in, and then you can mark them as missing, mark them as safe, and then it will update their status there. So really easy for those evacuations when they do happen as well. You can also lock down the entire building in the click of a button. And so this is where a lot of our US customers, and we're seeing it more and more in the UK, is they actually need in emergency situations to be able to lock down the entire site really easily. And that's something you can do through the click of the button there. I won't do that or else we will all be locked in. Moving on from access control, the air quality sensors have really taken off in education over the past 2, probably 3 years, mainly because schools are using them to stop, prevent, and catch vaping. Now, if I click onto, let's use this as an example, then I can click onto one of our sensors. Again, you've got all the events of any type of reading below. So it's not just vaping that it tracks, there's also noise, there's also a ton of other things. Schools tend to use it for vaping and noise being in toilets when bullying might be happening, maybe groups are gathering during lesson time in the toilet and making a racket, etc., etc. Now, where you can actually reactively search on what events have been happening is where you filter down by certain readings. So let's say I'm a school, I'm only interested in seeing about the vaping index. I can click onto that and it will take me straight into that event. Now, here you can see the integrated camera as well so that you can see what that event is. You'll probably see some pretty interesting things going on. One of my colleagues in the US has just sprayed a manufactured sort of vaping device, and you can see here on the sensor that this is flagged. Now, it will also show who is involved in that incident, and so when you're looking at the footage of this event, you can see, okay, that was student A that was in there at the time the vaping went off. And so that's the beauty of having it all integrated into one platform. In terms of alerts, so really easy to set up alerts with Verkada. So you can set up a ton of different types of alerts on the cameras. So various person of interest that I've gone through, similar sort of story with license plates of interest. If there were certain groups of people that you wanted to get notified, so say there's 5 or more people in a crowd, you can set up alerts for that. And then also loitering. So if someone's in a certain area for a certain amount of time, 10 seconds or more, for example, between these certain hours, you can get an alert sent as well. But moving back to the air quality sensors, so you can use the alerts on the air quality sensors to actually take a more proactive approach around vaping. And so as soon as that sensor recognizes that there's vaping happening, yourselves, safeguarding team, head teacher, whoever it might be, will then get a notification. They'll get an email and they'll get sent vaping detected in bathroom 4 on floor 2. And so then they can either send one of the staff members down to the toilet to investigate, or you can look at the footage. You've got that footage, it's saved, and then you can address that at a later date to save you keep having to jump from in between lessons to the toilets to monitor that. Tons of customers we've seen, typically they were managing vaping through monitoring the toilets at break and lunchtime, and it's just a real use of staff's time. And so this is a much more proactive way to then work around that and give them a little bit more time back in their day. The last 2 areas I'll touch on are the intercom and guest. And so the intercom is pretty straightforward. It's as you'd think, although I will say it does also have all those analytics built in as well. So it's actually one of our 5 megapixel cameras built into the intercom. And you can see this through the live view, but then also various different events that populate as well. So you can see below here, anytime a call was missed, anytime it was answered, granted, the door was unlocked, etc. It's all logged in one place. Now, you've probably noticed on the right, there's a timeline showing how the intercom call was received and then who was called. And so various groups can be set up from this. So just in the settings, really easy to set up. Okay, I want it to call group 1, which is our receptionist team, for 15 seconds. If they don't answer, I want it to then start calling group 2, which is someone else in our office or reception team. If they don't answer between certain hours, I want our head teacher, our facilities team, whoever it might be, to get notified as well. And this is where you can choose those hours for which you'd receive those notifications, and then on here, who would receive the notifications as well. In terms of guest, really simple way to manage visitors coming in and out of the school. And so here, again, the camera is integrated as with everything else on the platform, and you can actually get a full log of every guest that's been on site. Who were they here to see? Who was their host? What type of guest are they? And when did they come onto the site? So if I click into this top event here, I can see I've got the camera here showing more detail. This is taken on the iPad that the guest software sits on, and then I'm also able to track that guest throughout the rest of the site as well. So it will show where they've been seen across the rest of the campus. You can also, with guest, integrate with Intercom, with access control and Intercom, where you can send a pre-registered guest a link so that they can unlock doors themselves. So they don't need to be sat in reception waiting forever to be let through to the next door. In terms of guests, the last thing I'll show is just a nice screenshot of what that actually looks like when it's sitting on the iPad. So there's a QR code on there once this loads, so that if you've got a few different guests, they don't all just have to wait and use the iPad. You can obviously customize it to colors, logo of the school as well. Last thing I will touch upon is the support. And so this is probably one of the most important parts of the platform, this built-in 24/7 support. So typically when managing security, customers regularly tell us that when they do have issues, they're having to wait days, sometimes weeks, but usually hours or days to get anyone onto site to sort that issue out. With Verkada, it's really simple, just chatting through with some of our technical engineers. And so that's the 24/7 remote support, and they solve 95% of issues from here. Because it's hybrid cloud, it's typically just a case of troubleshooting. If for whatever reason it is a hardware failure, then because you've got that 10-year warranty, you get a new hardware device sent out to you within the next 48 hours. So a lot more peace of mind knowing you're protected and covered on those sides of things as well. I'll pause there. Josh, I don't know if we've had any questions in the chat. I've not been keeping up with it, but if we do, please feel free to fire away.
Yeah, we have. So I'm going to pose the question slightly different, so I hope the person doesn't mind too much on that. But so one of the sites on the call has a anti-face recognition policy at their site. So it was kind of, I wonder if you could talk around the live face blur, and I suppose it might also be interesting to know how that would impact the search AI functionality.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good question. I think a lot of education customers use it for this. I'll click it on now so that we can see it live in action here. But this is the live face blur. So it's just as simple as this button on the right. And then you can see here, it's now blurring out this individual's face. Obviously, if you've got the live face blur set, then you won't understand who exactly this student is at the time. But you could look for them at other areas of the site. You can do this on historical footage as well. I'd mentioned this briefly when looking at saving clips, so you can actually blur faces of all of those that are in the clip at the time. So this doesn't need to be turned on to then save the footage as a blurred face as well.
Fantastic, thank you. And then I was just in the middle of responding, but I suppose it'd be easier for you to talk through it. But it's about on the sensor front, the differentiation between vaping, body spray. I suppose you could extend that to cleaning products. You know, there's all manner of those. I guess, how does Verkada reduce those false positives?
Yeah, so in terms of the science behind it, I know the product team have done a ton of testing around this, because obviously there's always going to be, especially in changing rooms, deodorant, other sort of particles, chemicals in the air. The science behind it, I'm not 100% sure of what that looks like. Although I know that schools that have originally sort of seen anything being picked up, there's various barometers you can play with the sensitivity and what the readings look like, so that you can set it so that if it's above X, which it is vaping rather than just any chemical in the air, you'd get notified. So playing around with those settings and customizing it to the environment is typically the best way to do it. I think if that's something you're concerned about, I'd really push towards trialing that in one of the changing rooms where you'd see that being a case. It's 30 days. It's a free trial. We pay for shipping both ways. So I'd be keen to see what results you get from trialing that out in that environment.
Yeah, I was going to say the same. I mean, we support clients with those testing purposes. So what we tend to do is a go live session with yourselves to make sure it's all working operational. We'll go through some best practice. We then do a 3-day check-in and then a 2-week check-in, and it's really just to go through some of what you're seeing. So if you are noticing any false positives for any reason, we can talk through when is that happening, why it might be. We can go through custom triggers, thresholds, and all those bits that Zach's talked about it. So there is a lot of support there for you to make sure. Well, that's what we want. We want to make you and give you confidence that if you are choosing Net-Ctrl and Verkada, that it's going to deliver what you expect it to. There's been another question about the 10-year warranty for all hardware. Now, I know that used to be the case, but am I right in saying things like the Command Connect? So it's pretty much 95% of the portfolio is 10-year warranty. There's just a couple of items now that aren't. Is that the case?
Yeah, that's correct, Josh. So it's always typically been 10 years with the Command Connector, and there's 1 or 2 other hardware products that have been released much more recently that are 5 years.
Fantastic. And actually, we did a question before the session by one of the attendees about that Command Connect. Okay. So they were saying they'd read about you can now onboard non-Verkada cameras into the Verkada ecosystem, and they're asking how is it achieved and how is it licensed?
So firstly, what we would do is take the models and brand of camera so that we can understand if they are compatible with the Command Connector. We do have a full list of that on the website. So if you've got that to hand and you're able to search that on the website and you see that it is compatible, fantastic. If not, feel free to send either myself or Josh an email, and we can also test it internally. It doesn't mean that we won't. It might just be that we've not got it on the website yet. How that works in terms of pricing and practically is the Command Connector sits next to an MVR. They plug into each other, and then for each camera that you have added onto the Command Connector, you would then have a software license from Verkada.
Fantastic, thank you. With the Intercom system, is that proprietary, or is it something that they could integrate with non-Verkada access control systems? So in question here is a Paxton Net 2 currently supporting 119 doors across their system.
Yeah, so a lot of that would fall on Net-Ctrl with the integration side of things. The engineer I work with closely, Kieran, he would also support on that. But Paxton Net 2, I know that we do integrate with. I'm pretty certain we've worked with quite a few education customers in and around London and the South with Paxton Net 2 systems.
Yeah, actually just thinking about it, I think we actually had a site go live with Paxton within the last 2 weeks. Now the breadth of Paxton, I'm not 100% on what part of that was, but certainly if you raise that with us or with me after the call, we'll investigate that further for you. Let's just see.
One more, just see one about PoE.
Yeah, so how are your sensors communicating? I suppose it's also the wider portfolio as well. Yeah. But yeah, how are they communicating?
Yeah, so I should have mentioned this on the architecture slide. So everything is PoE. So the sensors are PoE, so Cat 5 or 6, and it's very much plug and play. So it's all configured out the box. Everything I showed is one, included in the license. There's no extra charges, and then two, configured out the box as well. And that's the same with the cameras. All of those are PoE as well.
Fantastic. I just had one asking for the link for the sports account, so I'll send that through to you. As Zach said, it's not an exhaustive list. I know from recent experience we've had a lot of robotics cameras, for example, that weren't on the list but are supported. So again, I'll also send an email post the session. Is a short form to give me the make and models, and we'll confirm what can and can't be supported on there for you. But I will send you the link to the web page as well. Right, so I think that is all of our questions. I'll keep an eye on the Q&A. If you do have anything pressing, please post that now, and if we'll have time, we'll cover that off. After the session, my email's in the chat. Any questions, feel free to fire them off. We do, as Zach said earlier, we kind of do push these free trials. We see it as a really powerful way for you to play around with it, test it, and see the solutions for yourself. Yeah, but Zach, I don't know if you've got anything closing that you'd like to say, and I'll just keep an idea.
No, I think you've said it all, Josh. Yeah, I do think it's brilliant to see all of this virtually. I think it's best to take us up on that free trial, really. And if it's a great fit, brilliant. We'll carry on the conversation. If not, then